In this video, I wanted to showcase a little bit more of the integrations that you can have with the Stark system, and also go through a little bit more of some of the terminology and in the background what the system is doing to process this information. In this video, I'll be going through the integrations with the automatic driving monitor, some of the file system commands you can use, integration with forecast.io, Jenkins, the continuous integration build system, the Nest Smart Thermostat, and the SmartThings Home Hub. And I realize with some of these, such as the Nest and the SmartThings, you won't physically be able to see the actions taking place. In the future, maybe I can try and set up a better webcam so you can see it live. But in this case, when you see the responses come back, you'll just have to trust that it's really doing those events. Before I get into the demonstration, a little bit of terminology that you'll probably hear me use. In the context of the Stark framework, a module is what I refer to as an integration point with a service, and each module has a collection of methods and events. A method is a function that can be performed, and the syntax I used is sort of native to programming languages where you would do like a method or a function call. In this case, you use the module name dot the action you want to perform, and many of the methods can accept arguments or variables that will alter what they do. An event in the system is the result of a method, or it is something that's triggered by an external source. As I've described in the description of this project, Stark is an event-based automation system. So the idea is that either you trigger an event through an action, or an external service or a machine will trigger an event. And you'll see examples of that as we go along here. A job is a collection of methods that are run in order. So if you have a specific order of steps for something, or you have a bunch of things that you want to happen, rather than triggering them all individually, you can set them up in a job, and they can be triggered by a name, or you can trigger them via a phrase. And this is typically what you're going to see me do, and this is how most automation systems that work via human interaction, whether it's speech or text, generally work. You set up some sort of phrase that you want to trigger an action. And the last thing is a monitor. And a monitor is sort of a watcher that watches for a particular event and then forwards the results to a client or a group of clients. And the idea here is that you may want a text message every time a particular event happens, so you would set up a monitor for that event. Or when you get really complicated within the system, you could set up events that trigger other jobs to happen based on the fact that they've completed. And I won't be demonstrating that here, but that's just an example of how you can chain things together. Before I jump into a demo, just a little bit more clarification on a module and a method and an event and all those. This is an example of a method, weather.current, and this uses the forecast.io integration point, the module, to go out and gather current weather information for a given latitude and longitude. If you don't give it a latitude and longitude, you just get the defaults that are predefined in the system, which is my location for where I live. This is sort of a test environment. It's just a website. So if you go ahead and test it, it'll tell me right now that it is currently 66 degrees and clear. You get a whole bunch of other information from the system that can be used. It's just a JSON call to a web service, and in the background it's performing the lookup. A more usable form of this is to wrap it within a job where you can give it a phrase. And I've chosen to use regex here so that you can make your phrases as customizable as possible. So you can see here any variation of sort of what's it like outside, or what is the weather like outside, will perform the weather.current action, and this is sort of some stuff related to security that I'm not going to get into right now, but that's all customizable within the job. So for the rest of this demo, I'm going to be using command line, and I have written just a very simple bash interaction script that sends the commands to the web backend in the background and returns the response. For this purpose, it's a little easier to do it that way than to try and text or speech activate everything. Here you can see everything as it's written out and as it's happening. So the first example I'm going to use is the automatic driving monitor. If you haven't used this before, check out the link in the modules area of the project, and it'll bring you to their website. It's something you plug into your car, and it uses your cell phone to sort of keep track of things about your car, where you're driving, how much gas you're using. Here I've hooked into their web API as an integration point, so I can ask questions like, stop for gas. So here you can see it returns my Honda Accord has 35% gas left, and according to Stark, that's looking good to him. I think if it falls below 10%, he will prompt me to go and get some gas. Constantly asking for your gas level probably isn't very useful, but you can see here how if you were to trigger an event based on that, you could get automatic notifications when your gas falls below a certain threshold. And these are all customizable settings, but for the purposes of a demo, I'm not going to go through each one. Sorry for the jump in the video, I got interrupted. Going on to the file system integrations, I want to show here how you can interact with the file system for the operating system that Stark is actually running on to perform some file operations. One thing I like to do is use the Kodi integration point to just ask a basic question like, do I own a particular movie? Given that I do here, I might want to do some things with that movie file, such as transcode it to a smaller size, so maybe I can put it on an iPad or my cell phone, watch it when I'm out on the go, whatever. So I can have Stark transcode that movie for me to a particular folder on the operating system. So I would like to use a preset, and I'm going to put this movie on my iPad. What Stark is doing here in the background is it's actually doing a system call out to the Handbrake transcoding tool that you can get for free in Windows or Linux, and it's having that program that knows how to do the transcoding actually perform that operation, and all Stark did here was sort of hand off my preferences along with the file path to that system. One thing I might want to do is know when this is going to be done, because this could take a while, maybe an hour or two. So I'm also going to have him tell me when this process is completed, since he's monitoring that system process. And so I've added a monitor to my SMS client, which is my cell phone, and so now when the transcoding job is complete, it'll send an SMS just letting me know, hey, that thing you wanted me to do is now done. As you can see, a lot of this is based on the context of previous things that you've told him to do, and the system will keep track of that in a history, and as long as you can reference back to what was previously done when you set up your jobs, it'll do the right thing. I'll get into that setup in a different video, how you actually tell the system how to reference things that have happened before in sort of a context or a question and an answer type of situation. Just to prove to you that this is happening, we can do an ls on that folder, and you can see there is a file in there, a Dark Knight MP4 file that it's transcoding as we speak. And if I do another ls, you can see that the file size is growing. That is a real file system task, and it's running. So while that's running, we'll move on to a different integration point. And this will be the forecast, the weather, the forecast.io website. They also have an open API. You can get a developer key. And I've just done a few simple integrations for things that would make my life easier, such as what is it like outside? And this is referencing back that job that I showed you on the web interface before. So here we just get, what is it like outside? And we'll get back, it is currently 66 and clear. Pretty similar to what it was before. So now that we have that, maybe we would like the weather forecast, which again is easy to get. This is a job that's already pre-set up, and it's coming back with what the forecast will be for today into tomorrow. This is doing the web call in the background. As you ask it for information, it ties that to the method of the module, and that will go out and pull in that information and return it. Again, you could set up some sort of events based on these queries that we're doing, so that you could have other actions happen. Another module is the Jenkins continuous integration environment, and I use that to build Stark among other projects that I might want to keep track of on my system. So you can query some basic information from Jenkins as well as start jobs that you want him to run. So a real easy one here would be just, what is the build status of Stark itself? What is the blast build status? Which I did just today, and it ran 1 hour and 1 minute ago, and it was a success. So that's good. You can have events set up based on the success of your jobs if they were successful or failure. Maybe you want to get different types of notifications or build other jobs, which again, you could have Jenkins itself do this, but maybe you want integration into different systems. If you want to actually trigger a build, you can tell him to build a job. He'll make you confirm that yes, this is what we want to do. And now that job will go ahead and run. So we could ask for the build status again. And this time, because the job is currently building, you get the status of the most current build, not the status of the build that previously completed or failed. So it is context sensitive based on the question you ask and what is actually going on at the time. Sort of going back to the transcoding job that we had asked the system to do previously, let's say some time has gone by and you want to know what that job is currently doing. We can go ahead and ask, what is the progress of that video transcoding? And we're at 2.82%. This is going very slowly, probably because we're hammering the system with a lot of other things to do at the moment. But you can see, you can go back and check on how your video is doing, and you could be doing this with your Android phone. You could ask it a question. You could be SMS texting information back and forth, and it would send it to you that way. Here we're using the command line, whatever sort of client integration you want to write, as long as it can get that web query to work with the system, it'll look up that information for you that it's keeping track of. Moving on to more home automation type stuff, some real world things, not just software moving around. We can look at the Nest thermostat. I'm using sort of the unofficial integration here. It's a library I found on GitHub, JNest. I'll put a link to it in the project files here. But that allows you to ask some questions such as, how hot is it in here? So it looks like the house is in away mode, and it's not actually going to be able to interact with it very much. So, let's tell it, I'm home now. Great, now I'm home. It's taken the house out of away mode, and now we can do some things. Let's say we want to 71 degrees. So now we've set the thermostat to 71 degrees, and we can go ahead and ask the same question that we asked before. only now we should get a different answer. So now it's 70 degrees, and the house is no longer in away mode, it's not going to tell you that, and we've set the thermostat to 71 degrees. And, you know, now we're done. I don't need to interact with that anymore, so I'm going to tell it that I'm leaving, and it'll go ahead and set the home back into away mode. Again, just interacting it with it this way doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but you can see how you could automatically set up events to happen based on other things that are going on. Lastly, I want to talk about the integration with SmartThings. And I use SmartThings to control Z-Wave devices around the home, as well as do some other automatic things, because that's what that device is good at. Stark is good at taking events and pushing them into other things, but the point of this system isn't to reinvent the wheel and create home automation from the ground up. It's to take integration points that other products already have that they are good at and integrate them back into this system. So in the case of SmartThings, I can ask it, did I leave my bookshelf lights on? And I did this by creating a SmartThings web integration point on the SmartThings platform that I can query against. And my bookshelf lights are off. Well, that's great. So let's say I want to turn them on. So now it's turning on the bookshelf lights, which I really wish I could show you here. So those are a Z-Wave device, it's turned them on. So now we can ask again, you know, are the bookshelf lights on? And yes, they are. The bookshelf lights are on. Thank you. So that was just a real brief, you know, introduction to some of the different modules that exist on the system and how you can use the methods and the monitors and the events to sort of create tasks that you want to accomplish on a daily basis. And you can either tell the system to perform them via, you know, a very simple command line interface, or you can make the interactions a lot more meaningful and use something like a speech to text system, which I can showcase at a later date. I think in the next video I'll try and get more into the setup of how